Oh, hi, I'm Chris Villemez. Today we're going to talk about how we can apply automation for a typical incident response workflow. As you see here on the screen, this is a very typical incident response. We have an event would be detected, come into the system, and then ultimately you need a first response. That's typically going to be a first engineer. It's going to take a look at that ticket, do some type of an investigation. Now that's a very potentially lengthy process, a lot of manual sequential work. That engineer will sometimes need to escalate that ticket and then ultimately get that ticket resolved and remediated. At the end of the day, we'll have a post-mortem review to try to determine, hey, this took 6 hours this time, how can we make this take only 1 hour next time? So here you can see how we can apply automation concepts to help that process all along and ultimately drive down mean time to repair. So we have the concepts of triggered automation. So rather than have a ticket come into a system, sit there with a lengthy idle time before an engineer picks it up, we can leverage some automation, apply automation and start that initial diagnosis. And we can empower the responding engineers with interactive automation. So at the click of a few buttons, rather than going into 6-7 devices, issuing 7 or 8 commands, click a button, get all of that information in a matter of seconds. And then ultimately, when we've done this diagnostic procedure at the end, if we can codify that knowledge and put it into a repeatable process, we're able to shift that workload continually downstream and reduce MTTR. So you can see here, again, this is an example of shifting that workload from right to left. So as an engineer, I will receive a ticket here, and ultimately I'm trying to do some type of troubleshooting to isolate, in this case, a slow application. I'm looking at some diagnostics on the router to determine what's happening here. But in this case, I'm looking at a single router doing a single command. What I would really like to do is be able to leverage that diagnostic and maybe several diagnostics across all of these devices. So what I can do here is ultimately convert my diagnostic into a repeatable process here. So we have the concept in NetBrain, a few options to do this, but one of the concepts we have is a data view template. So what this really is, this is a way of containerizing all of that telemetry, data, configuration, topology information, and allowing us to view it on a map. And ultimately, say for example, I want to look at only multicast information here. I can containerize that, display only multicast in the context of this specific problem and this specific topology. So again, that's allowing an engineer to select an item here with a click of a button and get a lot of diagnostics displayed on the map and ultimately try to drive down MTTR. So again, if we take that further, I can build this into more advanced repeatable processes and hand that workload down to a level 1 engineer. So rather than have a need to continually escalate tickets upstream to a more advanced engineer, let's try to get that workload to a repeatable automation process to provide to a level 1 engineer. So that's what we refer to as interactive automation. So now again, if we can continually drive this down, we can apply what I previously referred to as triggered automation. Allow the machine to do some initial diagnosis, map the problem, potentially find the issue, at the very least move that forward at a much faster rate. So for example, we have an example with our ServiceNow integration. So in this example here, I've got another similar application slowness problem. This has been defined with a trigger that says, hey, this particular business service is our SAP application with a particular IP and keyword slowness. I'm going to execute a very specific task here. So in our scenario, what we've done here using the ServiceNow integration to NetBrain is I've been able to embed into the ticket, before an engineer even looks at this ticket, the map of the problem area, and also leverage some initial diagnostics. In this case, we can actually identify the problem simply within the ServiceNow tool without even having to go into the NetBrain system. So now, again, this is something that we've identified a problem here. It's a bad optical transceiver, ultimately causing the packet loss and the slowness for SAP application. So again, in this scenario, before an engineer would even take a look at this event, we would have the map provided. We would have that end-to-end path, we would have a diagnostic that's been applied to all of the devices in this particular scenario. And in our particular case right here, we've actually identified the issue. But even if a problem was not found, this would have moved us forward in a huge way for MTTR, because we've done a lot of work to map out the problem, done some initial triage, and kind of narrowed down the root cause of the issue, and allowing an engineer to continue from here and continue work that problem. So again, the goal is here to take those diagnostic steps, put them into a repeatable automation task that can be used 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and hand that ability downstream to Tier 1 engineer, and ultimately some of this workload can be handed down to the software itself. And at the end of the day, what this is going to do for us is drive down continuously MTTR for all incidents year after year. Thank you.